Configure and verify OSPF version 3. There is a comparison table. OSPF version 3 will support IPv6, but it will also support many address families. It can support unicast IPv6, multicast IPv6, IPv4 unicast, and IPv4 multicast, and it is extendable. It will run natively over IPv6. It will make a heavy use of link local addresses. It will not use global unicast IPv6 addresses in order to create neighbors and in order to identify links, but it will use mainly link local addressing. It can support IPv4, but even if you're using IPv4, you will still have to configure at least IPv6 link local addresses, otherwise it will not work. There is a new way to configure OSPF version 3, a more recent way to do it. Some recent routers support the new way, and if you're working with old routers, you have to use the old way to configure it. Regarding the router ID, you should configure this manually, because remember that the router ID is a 32 value, and if you're running an IPv6 network, maybe you will not have an IPv4 address where the operating system will be able to choose from in order to set the router ID automatically. If that happens, you will end up having a router ID of 0.0.0.0, which is not usable. So you must set the router ID manually. And the passive interface, the summarization, the network types, and the packets are all the same as OSPF version 2. Just remember that the packets will have their headers changing a little bit. Now, regarding LSAs, the LSA number 1 or router LSA will change. It will not be allowed to carry prefix information. The LSA number 2 or network LSA will also change because it will not be allowed to carry mask information. The LSA number 3 changes its name. Now it will be known as inter-area prefix. The LSA number 4 will change its name also. It is now known as inter-area router. There are two new LSAs. Link LSA will carry mainly link local addresses that belongs to neighbors within one link. The intra-area prefix LSA, or number 9, will be in charge of carrying prefixes. Remember that since LSA number 1 and LSA number 2 no longer carry prefix information, this intra-area prefix LSA will. Now, OSPF version 3 will be based on links rather than networks. So routers interfaces are known as links. These links will be identified by a number. So this reduces the amount of situations in which the shortest path is run. The shortest path algorithm is run. Regarding the packet header, with OSPF version 3, and these packet headers will not carry prefix information. Remember, for instance, that for OSPF version 2, the hellos carry masks that belong to neighbors. This will not happen with OSPF version 3. OSPF version 3 will use its own IPv6 multicast addresses. OSPF version 3 will not support authentication, but will rather rely on IPv6 native IPsec security features. Devices will form neighborships using their IPv6 link local addresses, and they can become neighbors even if they do not belong to the same subnet. For non-broadcast multiple access networks, you will still have to configure manually your neighbors, but you will have to use IPv6 link local addresses. OSPF version 3 has now an instance ID where you can create different neighborships depending on the instance ID between your devices. The instance ID actually travels between devices. There is a new field for LSAs that is known as the link state type field that will indicate their scope. So if an LSA has a link scope, it can only travel across a link. If an LSA has an area scope, it should be floated across an area. And if an LSA has an autonomous system scope, it should be floated across all your OSPF autonomous system. That's it.